Number 3, cornerback Deshaun Wright. To say there have been opportunities for cornerbacks with the Cowboys in recent years would be an understatement. We've seen the emergence of a number of young corners in Dallas, but we've also seen players struggle. The last 2 seasons, young players Trayvon Diggs and Daron Bland have made it to the Pro Bowl. The Cowboys brought in veteran Stephon Gilmore this past offseason in a trade with the Colts, but there was some hope that Deshaun Wright could carve out a role for himself in 2023. If the Dallas Cowboys really are all in for 2024, they should make these 5 bold moves. The Dallas Cowboys are doing what they like to do at this time of year, talking a big game. Jerry Jones, who never turns down a chance to speak into a live mic, hinted the team was about to go all in, which should excite fans, if Jones is making all the decisions. Anyone who follows the teams closely should realize by now that Jerry Jones does the hyping while his son, Steven, makes the major decisions. That should give anyone pause when it comes to expecting a major splash, but at the same time, we can hope. Perhaps the younger Jones sees how close the team is and will finally be willing to roll the dice. If so, these are our 5 bold predictions for the Cowboys as they look to capitalize on their championship window. Number 5, Stephon Gilmore locked up on a multi-year deal. This one might not sound incredibly bold off the bat, but it would be. Dallas has done a solid job in recent years finding certain veterans who can fill a need, but they don't keep them around. A couple of examples include Randall Cobb, who had 828 yards in 2019, but wasn't re-signed. The same was true that season with Robert Quinn, who had 11.5 sacks in his single season in Dallas. Now they have Stephon Gilmore entering free agency after a solid campaign. He was thrust into the number 1 cornerback role when Trayvon Diggs was injured, and while he is approaching his mid-30s, he proved he can still get the job done. In this prediction, Gilmore sticks with the team by signing a deal for 3 years. That should allow him to finish his career in the Big D. Number 4, Cowboys sign Marquise Brown and release Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup has been far from the player we remember in 2019. A former 3rd-round pick from Colorado, he broke out with 66 receptions for 1,100 yards, with 6 touchdowns in his 2nd season in the NFL. Paired with Amari Cooper, the Cowboys had one of the more feared passing attacks in the NFL. Unfortunately, injuries began to slow Gallup down. He appeared in just 9 games in 2021 and saw his season end with a torn ACL. Despite being injured, Dallas signed him to a 5-year extension and traded Cooper away. Thankfully, CeeDee Lamb has been up to the task of being a legit number 1 wideout because Gallup has been a disappointment. He's coming off a frustrating season that saw him catch just 34 passes for 418 yards with 2 touchdowns. The Cowboys can move him as a post-June 1st cut and save some money, which is what they do here. They can use that relief to extend other players after the money comes available, but before then, they replace Gallup with Marquise Brown in this prediction. A former 1st-round pick for the Ravens, Brown had over 1,000 yards in 2021, but wasn't able to top the mark with Arizona over the past 2 seasons. He's still capable of stretching the field with this speed, and might come in at a decent rate coming off a 574-yard campaign. Having him, Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Jake Ferguson would truly open the offense. Number 3, Cowboys add linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. Dallas had an impressive defense once again in 2023, and it will be a challenge for them to continue growing now that Dan Quinn took the head coaching job with the Washington Commanders. While it's true his defense struggled down the stretch and in the postseason, Quinn always had his unit playing full speed. Having said that, there was one area of weakness in 2023, linebacker. After losing Leighton Vander Esch to a neck injury, the Cowboys were down to Damone Clark as their primary starter, with Marquise Bell, the converted safety, lining up next to him. Clark led the team with 109 tackles and Bell had 94 in his new role. Looking ahead, however, both players could benefit from another playmaking linebacker being added. This would allow Clark to have more help against the run, whereas Bell could slide into the role Jaron Kears has occupied in recent years. This prediction is they go out and sign Azeez Al-Shaair in free agency. He was undrafted out of Florida Atlantic in 2019 and spent 4 years with the 49ers. He signed with the Titans in 2023 and had a career year with 163 tackles and 2 sacks. At 230 pounds, he's a better fit for the position than Bell and will help the rest of the defense due to his ability to shut down the run. Number 2, Cowboys land running back A.J. Dillon. After moving on from Ezekiel Elliott, the Cowboys used the franchise tag on Tony Pollard, who finally got his chance to be the lead back. He topped 1,000 yards for the second year in a row, but wasn't nearly as explosive as he was in his complementary role. He also managed to hit 100 yards just once throughout the season. That's why it's predicted Pollard will leave in free agency as Dallas goes in a different direction. There are those who believe they can make a huge splash and add either Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley. Both would be huge additions, but would come with concerns. For Henry, he's been overutilized throughout his career by the Titans. For Barkley, he's coming off a down season and has struggled with durability. Even with those concerns, both players are likely to break the bank, which could take the Cowboys out of the running. But that doesn't mean they can't improve their ground game in a huge way, which they do by landing A.J. Dillon. A former second-round pick, Dillon spent the past 4 years with the Packers and has been the number 2 back behind Aaron Jones. He has over 2,400 yards on the ground and 16 touchdowns with an average of 4.1 yards per attempt. He also has 763 yards and 2 touchdowns as a pass catcher in his career. Dillon, who averaged just 3.4 yards per attempt in 2023, could benefit from a fresh start. Dallas could benefit from signing a 247-pound halfback, especially after their struggles in short yardage situations this past season. That makes it a great pairing for both sides. Number 1, our final prediction, Dak Prescott agrees to the most lucrative contract in the NFL. The final bold prediction is one that shouldn't be that bold at all. Every team in the NFL knows they have no chance to win unless they have their quarterback. They also tend to do everything they can to keep the quarterback happy and under contract. Well, every team except the Dallas Cowboys. For whatever reason, they dug their heels in the last time Prescott was due for a contract extension. That led to his value increasing, which is typically what happens in the league. After having him play on the franchise tag in 2020, Dallas signed Prescott to a 4-year deal worth $160 million. As we enter the 2024 campaign, Prescott is going into the final year of that deal and currently has a cap hit of more than $59 million. Dallas has to lower that number, and the only way to truly make an impact on the hit will be to sign Dak long-term. Hopefully the Jones family will have learned from their hesitation several years ago and just rip off the Band-Aid. Yes, Prescott will make a lot of money, but the quicker he signs, the quicker his deal is surpassed, thus making his looking like a bargain within a couple of years. With all that being said, this final bold prediction is that Dallas rewards Prescott for his MVP caliber season by getting a deal done quickly, and when it's signed, it will be the most lucrative contract in the league, which will also make it the most debated, even though it will be surpassed the next time a starting quarterback needs to get re-signed. Do you have any bold predictions for us? Let us know in the comments section below. And now we're going to take a look at 4 Cowboys that we can safely call busts after the 2023 season. It might be safe to call a few players busts after this past season. The Dallas Cowboys definitely had one of the best rosters in the league on paper in 2023, but that doesn't mean every single player lived up to expectations. Regardless of NFL draft status, players can definitely bust when it comes to expectations that get heaped upon them by fans or media. But for those players, the good news is that the season wasn't the end of the road. The Cowboys' 2023 season as a whole could be considered a bust for many, but as you dissect the roster, it's safe to maybe throw that dreaded word around. This isn't something that's just reserved for first-round picks or high-priced free agents. You're going to look at a handful of players, it's safe to say, haven't lived up to expectations as of this past season. Starting off with Josh Ball, the offensive tackle. There was a lot of controversy surrounding the Cowboys selecting Josh Ball in the 4th round of the 2021 draft in the first place. Ball had issues at Florida State that led to his dismissal from the program, and he finished out his college career at Marshall. NFL draft experts were saying at the time that Ball had top 100 talent, maybe even early day 2 talent, if not for his issues off the field at Florida State. But those issues couldn't be ignored, and the Cowboys felt comfortable enough with their off-field evaluation on him to take him with the 138th overall pick in 2021. At this point, I think we can safely say that was a waste of a 4th-round pick. Ball has appeared in 13 games in 3 seasons, and the Cowboys shouldn't be spinning their wheels anymore after this season. He was placed on IR in late August last year, and with just 13 games and basically a handful of snaps in 2022 to his credit, Ball isn't worth keeping around anymore. Number 2, Peyton Hendershot. The Cowboys knew they were going to need some players to step up this year at the tight end position, especially from within. The Cowboys used a 2nd-round pick on Michigan tight end Luke Shoemaker, a move that hasn't exactly yielded the best results thus far, but the departure of Dalton Schultz in free agency paved the way for guys like Peyton Hendershot and Jake Ferguson to seize a bigger role at the position. Hendershot had a pair of touchdowns in the 2022 season, and with Schultz leaving, there were some people who felt like he could end up being the Cowboys' next top pass-catching tight end. Fortunately, he was only able to play in 8 games this past season, catching just 4 passes. Meanwhile, Jake Ferguson ended up making the Pro Bowl in 2023 with 71 receptions for 761 yards and 5 touchdowns. As we look ahead to the 2024 season, there's no shot that Peyton Hendershot is taking Ferguson's job, and you can expect the Dallas Cowboys to keep giving Luke Shoemaker more opportunities as well. I think the 2022 hype for Peyton Hendershot is effectively dead. Number 3, cornerback Deshaun Wright. To say there have been opportunities for cornerbacks with the Cowboys in recent years would be an understatement. We've seen the emergence of a number of young corners in Dallas, but we've also seen players struggle. The last 2 seasons, young players Trayvon Diggs and Daron Bland have made it to the Pro Bowl. The Cowboys brought in veteran Stephon Gilmore this past offseason in a trade with the Colts, but there was some hope that Deshaun Wright could carve out a role for himself in 2023. The injury to Trayvon Diggs may have been his inroad, but it was Bland who seized the opportunity and set an NFL record with 5 interceptions returned for a touchdown. Wright played 50 snaps defensively this past season, and there were injuries to both Diggs and Gilmore, albeit at very different points of the season. And nickel corner Jordan Lewis really struggled early on in the year. You would have thought that the way Lewis struggled so badly early in the year that Wright might have at least gotten a chance, and maybe the Cowboys could have tried him out as a big slot, but it didn't happen. Wright has a fascinating combination of height, 6'4", and speed, 4.46 in the 40-yard dash. But so far, it's only translated to special teams for the Cowboys. Now that he's entering year 4, it might be safe to say things aren't going to work out for him as a cornerback with Dallas. Number 4, Neville Gallimore. The Dallas Cowboys used a 3rd-round pick on Neville Gallimore in the 2020 draft, and people felt at the time they have gotten one of the biggest steals in that particular draft. As a matter of fact, many experts had Gallimore as a possible 2nd-round pick in the class. Although some pegged Gallimore as a 2nd-round player, it's almost scary just how accurate he was. Those flashes of talent from Gallimore haven't materialized into anything consistent. He played as many as 48% of the Cowboys snaps back in 2021. But over the last 2 seasons, his role has diminished substantially. He played a career-low 27% of Dallas' snaps defensively in 2023, despite dressing for all 17 regular season games. And with that, his contract is ending, and the Cowboys are almost certain to move on from him in free agency. With the Cowboys' need for defensive linemen to step up on the interior in recent years, having let a player like Gallimore step up could have been huge. And now on to our next topic. The Cowboys' combine meetings are bad news for recent draft disappointment. Is a recent Cowboys draft pick already on the hot seat? To say the Dallas Cowboys need an improved showing in the NFL draft would be a colossal understatement. The 2023 class obviously isn't to blame for the Cowboys' playoff loss, but they made 8 selections and essentially got 0 production from the entire group. In fairness, third-round pick DeMarvion Overshawn was seemingly headed for a significant role amid a strong training camp and preseason. His ACL injury put Dallas in a bind at linebacker, and it caught up to the team in the playoffs. Usually good for at least one home run pick in every draft, the Cowboys came out of last year's showcase without so much as a double. The Luke Shoemaker pick seemed redundant and wasteful at the time, and that proved true as Jake Ferguson cemented himself as one of the best young tight ends in the game. Don't expect the Cowboys to select another tight end this year, but linebacker and defensive tackle are certainly on the table. That's no indictment on Overshawn, but obviously, first-round pick Mazi Smith could enter year 2 on the hot seat based on Dallas's combine meetings. The Cowboys reportedly had formal meetings with several top interior defensive linemen, including Texas star Tavondre Sweat, Texas A&M's McKinley Jackson, LSU's Mason Smith, Michigan's Chris Jenkins, and Clemson's Rook Orojo. Apologies if I butchered their names. And they also had informal meetings with multiple defensive tackles from Duke, Iowa, Georgia, and Miami. Sweat is obviously the dream pick. He's arguably the top-nosed tackle in the class. It's unlikely, however, that the Cowboys selected defensive tackle in the first round 2 years in a row. Most mock drafts have Sweat coming off the board in the second round, but it's wishful thinking that he'll be available when Dallas picks at number 56. If Sweat is available in round 2, the Cowboys should run the card to the podium. But the point remains, this is all bad news for Mazi Smith. Assuming Smith puts on weight and morphs back into the nose tackle he was at Michigan, he'll become the run-stopping space eater everyone thought the team drafted. With that said, Dallas essentially wasted Smith's rookie year by asking him to lose weight. The Michigan product played a lowly 304 snaps. Nobody's writing Smith off, but the pressure on the young defensive tackle is cranked up several notches with the Cowboys meeting with some of the top defensive prospects in this class. Luckily, odds are Smith recognizes the importance of the upcoming season. And now we're going to take a look at 5 moves that the Cowboys can make to free up $70 million in cap space. By trading for Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks last offseason, the Cowboys made everyone believe they were all in to win a Super Bowl. They ended up 4 wins short, and to add insult to injury, they were embarrassed at home in the first round of the playoffs. The Cowboys don't have a hefty bill to compound the failure, but they're still $21 million over next season's projected salary per over the cap. Luckily, the front office hasn't made any cap-crunching maneuvers yet, and it's not likely they have a twine of awful contracts on the books. As always, there's multiple pathways for Dallas to not only become cap compliant, but get significantly under the projected number in order to spend big. With 5 simple moves, the Cowboys can ascend the cap rankings. So to start off with, at number 5, you release Michael Gallup for $9.5 million. The writing's been on the wall with Gallup for 2 seasons now. He might have been released last offseason if his contract allowed it. The Cowboys ruined any chance of that by restructuring his deal, but they finally have it out this offseason in the form of $9.5 million if they designate him as a post-June 1st cut. Simply put, Gallup is making wide receiver 2 money to be the team's 4th receiver. Second-year man Jalen Tolbert leapfrogged Gallup on the depth chart midseason. It's unfortunate, but Gallup hasn't been the same player since his ACL tear. Among 109 qualified receivers this season, Gallup ranked 103rd in open rating, which essentially quantifies separation ability. Furthermore, the former third-round pick managed fewer receiving yards in 13 games this year than he did in 11 games in 2022 and in 8 games in 2021. Gallup's been on a downward trajectory since his breakout 2019 season. He failed to step up at the team's number 2 receiver last season post the Amari Cooper trade and was such a net negative in 2023 that he was effectively benched despite getting ample chances early in the season to prove himself. Number 4 and 3, Restructure Trayvon Diggs for $7.89 million and Zach Martin for $12.92 million. The Cowboys signed Trayvon Diggs to a 5-year, $97 million extension last summer. Diggs responded by playing at an all-pro level before tearing his ACL in Week 3. His extension doesn't kick in until next season, however, and he'll account for a $15.36 million cap hit as a result. That's more palatable for a player of Diggs' caliber, but Dallas already reportedly plans to restructure Diggs' contract. Doing so would free up nearly $8 million on the cap. That could allow the front office to splurge on a marquee free agent or make 2 low-profile signings. All-pro guard Zach Martin is another restructure candidate. Such a move would free up an extra $12.92 million. A double restructure of Diggs and Martin would net the Cowboys an extra $20 million in cap space. That alone would give Dallas the flexibility to extend multiple players and make a blockbuster signing or trade. An added bonus, depending on the terms of the restructure, it could ensure that Martin is back for the 2025 season. If nothing else, it would increase the odds of Martin spending 2 more seasons with the Cowboys. Number 2, extend CeeDee Lamb. Extending Lamb might be the easiest decisions the Cowboys make this offseason. Lamb announced himself as a top 5 receiver in 2023. He finished 3rd in Offensive Player of the Year voting, and one could argue he should have finished ahead of Tyreek Hill for 2nd place. Lamb ranked 1st in targets and catches, as well as 2nd in receiving yards and touchdown catches. In terms of advanced stats, no receiver had more yards after the catch than Lamb, and he ranked 3rd in passer rating when targeted and 4th in yards per route run, per PFF. Having an elite wide receiver is paramount to winning deep into January for teams that don't have Mahomes as their quarterback. CeeDee Lamb was the lifeblood of the Cowboys offense this past season. He and Prescott are arguably the best quarterback-wide receiver duo in the league. Extending number 88 is a no-brainer. The immediate cap savings are just an added bonus and allow Jones to fulfill his all-in promise. Number 1, of course, extend Dak Prescott for $26.2 million. The Cowboys made their own mess with Prescott's contract situation. It took years for Prescott and the front office to agree to terms the first go-around in 2021. Ultimately, Prescott inked a 4-year, $160 million deal with $95 million guaranteed. The contract also includes a no-tag clause and no-trade clause, which leaves Dallas without an easy out. They could ride out 2024 with Prescott's $59 million cap hit and let him hit free agency next offseason, but that would derail any and all hope of adding talent to the 2024 squad. That obviously isn't conducive to the Cowboys exercising their playoff demons. Given the no-tag and no-trade clauses and the fact Prescott is fresh off his best statistical season and finishing 2nd in MVP voting, the Cowboys' only logical choice is to extend Prescott. He has more leverage than he did in the first round of negotiations, which is saying a lot. There are questions about whether Prescott can lead Dallas to a Super Bowl, but he's very clearly a top 10 quarterback. His contract might look ugly when it's finalized, but so does his initial extension. Before long, he'll become an afterthought. So before we go, we'd like to remind you, give us a thumbs up if you like our video. Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button to be notified of future videos. And of course, check us out on Good Pods if you want to hear the audio version. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thebigd. Your support helps the channel grow, upgrade our equipment, bring in new hosts, be able to pay them, and hopefully one day take this show on the road, because we would love to do a live stream from AT&T Stadium, if possible, and your support can help make that dream a reality. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can find us on Twitter at Big D Breakdown. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll